I have a question on the Greek request. The Greek government has sent officially the request for 6 months extension. Can you please specify where the extension refers to? Is it an extension for a loan agreement or extension to a master financial assistance facility? And secondly, I would like to ask you to comment on the substance of the request. Thank you.
Yes, I can confirm that a letter has been sent by the Greek government to the president of the Eurogroup and also to President Juncker requesting an extension of the Master Financial Assistance Facility Agreement, which is the legal term for describing comprehensively the current program. President Juncker, who was in intense talks with President Dijsselbloem and Prime Minister Tsipras yesterday, through the night and also this morning, sees in this letter a positive sign, which, in his assessment, could pave the way for a reasonable compromise in the interest of the financial stability in the euro area as a whole. The detailed assessment of this letter and the response to it are now for the Eurogroup, which will be supported in its decision-making process by the European Commission and the other institutions. Thano.
Athanasios with Religious. So what they're asking is the extension of the current adjustment program for Greece. Is that right? The one that was already extended in December. They asked for the extension of the same thing that was extended in December. Is that clear?
I hope it is clear to you, but I may repeat what I just said. The Greek letter asks for the 6 months extension of the Master Financial Assistance Facility Agreement, which is the legal term for describing comprehensively the current program. Yes, please.
Conditions are the same described in this letter?
The conditions of the Greek letter will be discussed this afternoon at the Euro Working Group, and we understand tomorrow by the Eurogroup. Gabriela.
Hi. So they've asked for the extension of the MFAFA, but what about the flexibility that is part of the program? So the things that maybe the Greek government would like to swap over the coming months while it tries to conclude the last review or the current program or whatever you want to call it. Will that be discussed today and tomorrow? And is there a separate document in which the Greek government has laid out some of its plans? Because since that has been one of the big issues in the last few weeks, according to European officials, that the Greek government hasn't been precise enough in what it actually wants to implement and what it doesn't want to implement. And that question, even with this request, seems to still be outstanding. Thank you.
Well, after the CCTB that entered vocabulary in the press room, now we have MFAFA, but I think that it is very clear what now needs to be done, and I think you, Gabriele, you're asking differently a question that I just replied to, namely that everything that is in this letter now in terms of content will have to be discussed by the 19 members of the Euro area across the street, first by the Euro Working Group and tomorrow by the Eurogroup. And this is now the responsibility of the ministers to get this unanimous agreement. I reiterate that the Commission and the other institutions will assist in this process as much as we can. Jean-Jacques Coffon.
I have two questions of a technical nature, unfortunately. Would it be possible as the Greeks seem to have done up to now, to distinguish between the financial agreement, which is for the reimbursement of credits, and secondly, the political commitment for reforms, which I think are part of the Memorandum of Understanding. Could the Commission, which has signed both documents, as the EU is committed by them, can the Commission distinguish between the two? Because I think they seem to go hand in hand. Could we distinguish between them as the German minister has done?
Je préfère de ne pas entrer avant.
Well, I would prefer not to get into the content before the Eurogroup meets. I would prefer to leave it as things stand now, because it's not the habit of the Commission to preempt on complex and difficult discussions. I don't think we can preempt that discussion. It's something for next door. But the Master Financial Assistance Facility Agreement, and we'll have to find a French equivalent quickly, but that is exactly the term which was used to describe the programme in its existing form.
Oui, une question suivie.
A follow-up. Why has a formal Eurogroup been convened? Because over the last week we've been told that there would be a silent procedure or teleconference or tacit consent. Why is there now going to be a formal meeting in which the Commission, of course, will also participate?
I think what's new here is the fact that the letter was sent to Mr. Dijsselbloem and received by him, but I cannot give more detail than that. I cannot speak on behalf of Mr. Dijsselbloem. Jorge.
Although you cannot anticipate any result of the discussion, just to be clear, when you say that Juncker sees positive signs, you are referring also to the conditions included in the letter. And I have a second question now.
President Juncker sees this letter as a first positive sign. And it goes, I think it's self-explanatory what this means. I don't have to go beyond that. Second question.
In a recent interview, former French President Giscard d'Estaing has said that the only way for Greece to fix its problem is through a devaluation, so therefore Greece should exit the euro. So I would like to know if you have any comment on this.
No, I don't have any comment on this. The Commission works for Plan A, for the Eurozone, with an agreement of all 19 members of the Eurozone. Valentina.
Thanks, Marina from EU Observer. I was wondering, you said that the Commission, as all the other EU institutions, are trying to facilitate an agreement. Is the Commission currently preparing any draft documents to facilitate this agreement? And secondly, will both Mr. Dombrovskis and Mr. Moscovici be there tomorrow? Thank you.
On your first question, the Commission will indeed, as always, be part of discussions in the Eurogroup ministerial formations. There's no doubt. I will, of course, not speculate what form our involvement will take, because I think we had enough of paperology this week. On your last question, I need to check. I suppose that the answer is yes, but I understand that Eurogroup was called very recently. I didn't have the time materially to check with the Vice President and our Commissioner for Economic and Financial Affairs. Let's take Griselda for gender balance, and then we...
Well, given the content that you have just confirmed, does this mean that Mr. Juncker's role was to convince the Greek government to follow the existing standards, or is there a hope that the Greek government will actually be heard by the Eurogroup?
Un seul souci.
The only concern of President Juncker is to help to reach agreement amongst the 19, to facilitate such an agreement. And everything he's been doing right up to this morning was aimed at achieving that objective.
Yeah, technically, in the master facility, Hellenic master facility, in this agreement, can you tell us if technically is foreseen some changes, some amendments in the measures that the Greek government is obliged to take, technically?
If we would be ready to guide you through the contents of the Master Financial Assistance Facility Agreement. I think Annika has all the documents so that you can refresh your memory. But I would stay there. I would not like now to go into the content of this letter for the reasons I just described. But if you want to investigate what the term implies, then we can certainly guide you to the sources. Yes, Anne.
Je voudrais savoir si ce fa-fam, fa-fa, fa.
Well, about this agreement, the Master Financial Assistance Facility, is this a Greek invention, or did Mr. Dijsselbloem coin the term? Was it from the Commission side?
C'est rien de tout ça.
Oh, it's none of those, actually. This is a term which is used to comprehensively describe the existing programme. As I said to your colleague Annika, can help you to the source of this document.
Terme n'ayant jamais été
Well, this term has never been used hitherto. All the documents we have seen hitherto have related to the Memorandum of Understanding. So I don't really mind, but is it Athens now which is preferring this term, or has this been a suggestion from you?
Well, I'm not going to get into that because it would all be speculation. But what I can say to you and your colleagues is to have a look at the document. We can provide you with the source and you can see where the term was used for the first time.
J'essaie de poser la question.
Let me put the question in more exact terms. Is there a difference between the MFAA, which you have just referred to, and the Memorandum of Understanding, which contains the quantitative objectives, the figures on the budget, and all the rest of it, and all the reforms which Greece should carry out? Is there a difference between the two documents? The MFAA, is it something which is less precise than the Memorandum of Understanding?
De nouveau, la réponse.
Well, once again, my answer is the same. We can guide you, help you find the source of the information, and then you can assess for yourself what this term covers. As I said in the beginning of my presentation this morning, this term is used to describe the current program. Giovanni.
Sorry if it's on the same line, but would it be correct to say that what the Greeks and the present Greek government is doing with MFFA is roughly the same as the previous government was done last year? I mean, the same kind of extension, the same. If I understand correctly, the MFFA is basically the whole loan with all the conditions attached, just a technical name for it. Would it be correct to say that?
You are correct to say what you will judge for yourself after seeing the document that the term describes, and you will see that this term is on the first page of the document. Yes, David.
Oui, j'ai eu l'occasion ce matin de voir le document.
I was able to see the document. I wasn't able to read it all. It's quite lengthy. But it states, and here I'm quoting,
will take place only if the EFSF is satisfied with the compliance by the beneficiary member states with the terms of the MOU, including prior actions. Ma question est simple.
So my question is a very simple one. Can the Greek government receive this aid which is scheduled or which is laid down in the programme, if it does not do what is laid down now in the memorandum?
Well, the provisions of the current programme are well known. I'm not going to go into that. It's all been agreed. The content of the letter is something different. It is, of course, linked, and the Eurogroup will discuss that. At this point, I'm not going to be able to give you any more information. Once again, if you would like to check the conditions for yourselves, please do get the documents as we have them for you.
To try to be a bit more precise, was the term MFR used in the letter the previous Greek government sent to the Eurogroup in December?
That I don't have that letter, but I'm very happy to check. I'll have to find out. But Annika will find this letter for you. Bruno and then Christian.
Yesterday, Mr. Dombrovskis was urging Greece to refrain from unilateral actions, and the letter from Greece says that it will refrain from unilateral actions. So, to the Commission's understanding, does that mean that Greece should postpone or withdraw until negotiations have taken place some of the legislation on tax and social reforms that the Greek Parliament was due to approve this week, I think?
The Commission thinks that everything needs to be done to facilitate an agreement between 19 members of the Eurozone. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Christian.
Oui, est-ce que tu pourrais nous expliquer quels...
Could you explain to us which arguments were used by Mr. Juncker to convince Mr. Tsipras to agree to the extension of an agreement which the previous government under Mr. Samaras had requested extending? What arguments were deployed by Mr. Juncker? Did he stress, as Mr. Dombrovskis said, that the economic situation of Greece would be in an even more complex situation? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand. I mean, just to avoid getting into a second Eurogroup where some parties have the impression that they have been duped. And in these nightly or daily consultations, has Berlin been consulted as well?
I understand your interest in the content of the conversation, ongoing conversation between Mr. Juncker and all the stakeholders, including Mr. Tsipras. As I've said on various occasions, when the Prime Minister visited us 2 days ago, for example, there is an agreement that the content of that conversation is best to remain between the two. So, as regards your pessimistic outlook on tomorrow, well, I must say that I'm more of an optimist than you are, and I would rather look at the proceedings as a whole right at the end and not prejudge them before they begin.
Subjects that we can help you with, Thomas, or the same, or...
It's the same. Could you just tell us how long is the letter the Greek government sent you, and is it the same that it sent to Mr. Dijsselbloem?
The answer to your second question is yes, it's the same, and the letter has 2 pages. 2. Yes, please.
J'ai une question sur l'Ukraine, donc ça change de...
I have a question on the Ukraine, so it's a change of subject. Well, shall we see whether the Greek menu has finished? Okay.